Oh, jeez. And yeah, I guess that leaves us as to where we wish to go next here. I take a drink break to let that death percolate through my brain, because I'm still just in a little bit of shock here. But what do we wish to do next? Could go back to Djinni. It's been a hot minute. There's no guarantee that our Djinni will be well suited to take on slime and be able to see that in effect here. And I guess the other side of it is that I could actually bring up on the other monitor here my little spreadsheet that I'm tracking our wins, just so I can recall exactly what our options may be. Do one quick moment here. So we do have like Ash and Che, so we could swap over to something other than Spellcaster if we wanted to switch it up. And in fact, maybe we could go with either Djinni of Makhleb, could be fun, or various gods under like a ranged character. Just switch it up. Let's go with Djinni, just so we don't have to think too much about it here. And Fire Elementalist is generally my go-to start. These characters, oh, Shapeshifters recommended for Djinni. Interesting. But I think Fire Elementalist at least gives us a decent selection of spells to begin with, allows us to quickly take care of any cold-themed enemies. Djinni are pretty good in slime, although they can have some problems not getting their 9th level spell in time. And knowing our luck, all of our spells up until that point are going to be pure utility. And actually, yeah, Wizard mentioning Conjurer, that's a great point. I feel like that was traditionally one that we liked a lot, just because I think it kind of hedges your bets to a certain extent. You know, having access to IMB and especially Fulminant Prism can carry you through that mid game of getting nothing but garbage spells, and generally you're okay. Again, I think it was our great player Djinni got through the entire game with pretty much just Prism as our main source of damage, even against Orbs of Fire at the end. And instead we were just getting like Revivification, Death's Door, every dang utility spell you could imagine. But let's go for that, shall we? And what will your name be? Let's go with Djimmi. Perfect. And can try that one on for size. Right, this is our first time with the new skill change here. I'm guessing it's gonna feel pretty much equivalent to when they just had spellcasting. I'm kind of curious, and definitely let me know if any of you have a bit more insight as to why this change was taken. Unless it completely does switch up how the progression feels, then I guess that's something we'll learn in this trial by fire here, as we just jump straight into it, shall we? So of course, all the usual start of game routines, and can grab that game seed as I get blinded by the light of 1,000 suns, as Notepad just takes up the majority of my screen. Let's Djinni use manuals. Oh, interesting. So is it just a buff? Or are there any unforeseen consequences that I'm not taking into account here? So that sounds pretty lovely. And floor 1 barding. If only we were playing a character that cared whatsoever. But let's hopefully have a fairly smooth first few floors of the dungeon, at least to the point where we can get our further spells online. Once we hit those level 4 spells, then we're generally good to go until Lair. Again, that's definitely a pretty wide over-exaggeration, because there are all sorts of unforeseen circumstances that can come up and completely ruin our early journey here. but we'll just have a naive optimism and pretend that none of that exists, and we'll just be fine. Oh, we get Foxfire. Choose not to be a fire elementalist, but the game decides, no, Torinski, you will be everything you wish in this world. So I'll probably use Foxfire instead of Magic Missile. Or Magic Dart, I should say. Legally distinct from Magic Missile, of course. But yeah, the damage potential on Foxfire is just huge if you can get a decent number of flames. So that'll definitely help us take care of like an early ogre if we happen to run into that. Ooh, an adder could actually be a problem as well. So Searing Ray will be the best answer there, I feel. Fast enemies and enclosed space are the natural antithesis of our Foxfire, of course. It also makes the Ashen'Zari curses more interesting. That makes a lot of sense. Ooh, and should I pick up an early shield? I mean, I might as well grab it. Don't think we'll be worrying too much about training that in the near future, but something to keep in mind as an option at least. And that should pretty much do it for the second floor here. It also makes the bashing with elemental staves work. Okay, so it seems like across the board, it's just a boon for the Djinni. So that's pretty nice. I feel like I already very much liked playing them, and if the game has decided to make them a little more survivable on top of that, then I'm not going to complain whatsoever. I should be a little more careful with the ribbon worm. That's another enemy that I just don't have the experience with, as we've barely touched it. Ooh, confusion, please run out. Jeez Louise. I mean, you know what, let's just roll the dice here. I probably should not do so. I should like chug some random potions, but we're early days, nothing too exciting here, so we're gonna see if we can somehow just blast our way through these sons of guns. We only have 3 health. It's a shame, because if we had a little bit more, then we could throw out an IMB, and that would likely save our skin. So I guess in the end, after all that, we are going to randomly chug something and see what happens. Enlightenment is not going to do it. Brilliance, neither. And the last one was a Potion of Attraction. Yikes. But that we're okay with. That's a bit more in the general vein of DCSS. A nice early death. Get the Djinni jitters out, as I've always said. And then we can hop back in. And so, okay, I just wanted to double check. I believed that those were all linked, and they are indeed. But of course, that was a garbage dungeon anyway, so now we'll hop back in from the top, brand new seed. And this time, it's gonna be so much different. Honestly, it doesn't seem to make that much of a difference, but it's just nice that things work. Yeah, I feel like that's oftentimes what can feel bad about runs. I mean, it's something that I find, like, I love a lot of character backgrounds in this game, but it always is rough when you run into completely useless objects throughout your run, so it's nice to have some kind of balance so it at least feels more useful, even if that's not really the case. You know, even though it still comes out as feeling relatively similar in difficulty in the end, there's something to be said for that. But Edward Lizard Hands, the Draconian Shifter Wujian is waiting. Sure, let's cue that one up. If this doesn't go well, or more likely, of course, when we inevitably win with this iteration of Djimmi, then as long as I can remember, we can jump in with Wujian Shifter. In fact, I definitely wanted to try the Draconian Shifter. I think when we did our Oni run, somebody in chat mentioned that the dragon form, you get the additional breath weapon, or the themed breath weapon, that is, and I definitely just enjoy that from the thematic perspective. So, not too shabby. I guess thinking back to the original Djimmi here, Was there anything that we should have done there? Besides, of course, reach into our pocket for consumable panic a little bit earlier instead of just winging it and, you know, crossing our fingers, hope it works. Again, something I don't mind doing nice and early on. It's not like we're missing out on too much time or effort. But I think the main thing was that confusion coming in from our orc wizard friend, though we may have actually had a turn to go away. The reason why I am reiterating all this, of course, is because we want to try to apply some of those lessons to this run. Like, if we're in D3, we don't have IMB and Fulminant Prison up yet. Potentially, as soon as we see a single orc, we back away this time. It's not how I normally play it. Again, I generally am pretty fast and loose, especially in the early game. And so it's just, let's hope that there aren't immediately 3 orc priests that are going to smite us beyond existence in one turn. And generally that works out. A weirdly common number of times, at least. A weirdly frequent amount of the time. But the other option is that we just don't run into any problems whatsoever. Again, this is going to be the God Seed. It has been preordained. The seed we were promised. So we'll see how that goes, shall we? Already in a much better position, just finding that early ring of AC, or ring of protection, as it's better known, always makes a huge difference. Remember when I was saying we learn from our previous mistakes and we see one orc and we leave? We hightail it out of there? Well, now that we've revealed ourselves as the hypocrite we are, let's just continue to get lucky. See how it goes, shall we? Hello? Trying to magic dart, but we were able to reach you. I don't know. Oh, actually, sorry, losing my mind. I believe that we were trying to target our friend across the glass here. Oh, and Vehement. Unfortunately, I've already won with you, my friend, and not looking for any of the 3 good gods either here today, so those early altars aren't going to make too much of a difference on how we progress. And again, gnolls are another thing that I probably should feel a bit more fearful about, or at least take some kind of precautions if we run into more of them here. We are at least past where we were last time. So we have Fulminant Prism and IMB, not with any regularity, but it's at least there. Hey Brain, how's it going? And have I won with Makhleb? We have not. So yeah, I believe that that is likely where this run is going to go. Again, we'll see what altars we come across. Potentially, I mean, Ash is on that list too, so we could try out some of that effect and see just how much of a difference we feel, though I'm probably not the right target for that, seeing as how I don't play Makhleb too often. But there we go, Fulminant Prism, such a wonderful spell. And what we probably should do here, once we take care of this son of a gun, is let's head back to our stairwell, and we're gonna do the very rare bit of due diligence here and start IDing stuff nice and early. And if we can get, like, curing would be nice, or not, that's cool too. 2 brand weapon already? It's gonna be another one of those runs, eh? Nothing but brand weapon as far as the eye can see. But okay, yeah, Searing Ray actually makes pretty short work of our Gnoll friends, so we're maybe feeling just a little bit too much of the PSD side of, or PTSD side of things, rather than any relevant fear of those sons of guns. 7% failure rate, that's fine by me. If you could all just walk into that, please and thank you. I appreciate your candor. And holy moly. This time around we get Scorch as well. Not likely to be used, but that's fine. Again, now that we've gone to the level 4 spells, hopefully we won't have to rely too much on anything from our first selection here. And in fact, that's something I always complain about with Djinni, is getting nothing but utility spells, but I kind of want to have my cake and eat it too, because at the end of the day, with the Conjurer start, again, you have such a nice set of spells in your starting book, or in this case, starting brain, I guess. But the main point being that you almost want your first, like, up to level 5 spells to all be utility based. Like, getting stuff like Blink and Pass Wall is pretty huge for just equipping you to be better suited for the future. Hey Ajib, how's it going? Well, let us take you kiddos on just a little bit of a hike. I should have checked what type of wand Ajib had, but I was pretty confident, whether it was justified or not, that we'd be able to just blast that son of a gun with a prism, and it was indeed the case. So that is fantastic. And not too shabby. If we could come across the Economical Temple now, that would be a pretty huge help in just setting a bit of a tone for how things will continue on. Mark Trap is always fun. Oh, and speaking of fun, ice-themed enemy definitely is always great for your flame genies here. Wonderful. There we go. We can get a prism up, and in fact, I want to guarantee that Duvessa sticks in it, so we made a little bit of a dangerous step there, but that's fine. And, okay. Dowan is still alive, I believe, because we did see the scream of despair as they realized their poor sibling was not quite so fortunate. Oh, you're gonna step out of my explosion, aren't you? Or just blink out of it. Guess that works too. Oh, never mind. All that for a drop of blood. But a +2 robe of willpower. Don't mind if I do. Immediately we'll swap over. Slap that bad boy on. And then now we're just waiting, wishing, and hoping for the Economical Temple to show up. Altar to Dith is not quite going to make the cut here. At least not for rushing things, unless absolutely necessary. Fun fact, Djinni can get the Planewalker title despite not having legs. Very, very impressive. And I feel like you're pretty much the expert on titles, Wizard. Pretty much every time I've gone over to your stream, you've been getting some kind of very creative title sequence completed. But okie dokie, let us keep on keeping on here. No temple yet, but plenty of time. And we can probably start to speed up a little bit here. +2 leather armor, 2 pips of fire resistance, and will. I mean, when we eventually have to swap out from you, that's going to be a little bit on the rough side. Also, apologies for the mic bonk. But I think we can probably switch to that now. Leather armor still fairly light, so it gives us a bit more defensive capability without sacrificing our spellcasting too much. Now we've maxed out our fire resistance, which is completely unnecessary. Though, potentially the silver lining there is if we can find like a ring of cold, it becomes a bit more viable than it otherwise might be, to give ourselves at least a break from the cold vulnerability, because that's something that I'm always very likely to forget as the run goes on and we get a bit further in, until the worst possible moment when we're surrounded by all of the iciest friends one can imagine. So if I can cover that base as early as possible, that's a little trick to save me from myself, as I am usually my own greatest enemy in that regard. But there we go, we have a few more IDs. Still not doing very well on the potion side of things. I guess we can go for one of these. Potion of Magic, fantastic, love to see it. But a Potion of Resistance, actually do love to see you. That's a little bit on the more helpful side, because now at least if we do run into like an early ice cave, there's some potential that we squeak out a victory there. Though of course we're just hoping that no ice enemies for as long as possible. Please and thank you, DCSS. If you could be so kind. Fantastic. But nothing we can't handle here, as long as we don't get put to sleep at least. Let's make sure we're staying as cognizant and aware of that as we possibly can. Take a bit of a step to ensure our fungi friend jumps directly into the fray. And what else can I do besides accidentally cast the wrong spell? Always a great start. My part. There we go. Reset that encounter, and then IMB will basically carry us through any amount of melee weenies here, as long as they're all relatively straightforward to deal with at least. Is this going to be a Fedhas? Oh no, it's just good and evil. Fantastic. Love to see it.